Hey guys, so another day, another time to work on the Barra turbo swaps. I got a little bit carried away before I started filming, so basically I've gone and got the front mount just mounted on there. It was a bit tricky to fit up in there, so once that power steering line there is disconnected, I took the horn off, loom pulled out. Try not to break the clips, I did not be very careful with them, so got to figure something out for that. And then I unbolted this bracket here if you're using the factory stuff, and then basically bolted this aluminium pipe in, this cooler pipe. It's a bit tricky to get it under the battery box, don't really need to take the battery out, just took it out anyway. And then I ran the hose that goes from there to the cooler just to get the positioning sort of rough. Then what I did, I just marked, there's a stud through the bottom there, so just marked where that was, used that, sat it in there, and then I marked the hole here, here and underneath there. So yeah, just marked it, measured it, took my time measuring everything to make sure it's in the right spot, and it's looking pretty good, which is good. So blown all of this out with compressed air because there's probably dirt and everything in there, don't want that going through the engine. So now that's on, basically gonna just have a look at the cooler piping from here. I know this part is fine, but really need to get like the crossover pipe up the top bolted on, and then see how it comes off the turbo. So I know that turbo's got a much bigger intake, so I'll use a reducer or what, I'm not too sure at this point, but yeah, let's have a look, let's get stuck into it. Okay, so that's pretty exciting. It all of a sudden looks like it's almost done. There's still a lot to do, but yeah, so I'll run through. Basically we've got the crossover pipe just onto the throttle body here. It looks like I'm going to need some spaces because I don't think that can sit flush there. Had a quick little look, so might just need to put something in there to space that off a bit. Factory pipe to the intake there is all sweet, which is happy. Not too sure about these two hoses, one back here, one here, one's blocked off. I assume they're for blow-off valve, which they will remain blocked off. I don't know why someone decided to use a spark plug, but I mean, if it works. This, I'm not sure if that's part of the PCV. I'll have to have a look and try and figure out what they do from factory. But other than that, this cooler pipe that runs down to the aluminium elbow, that's all good. That runs around into the cooler, and then off the cooler we've got the big horseshoe piece. It's probably going to be a bit dark, but then that runs into this other piece here, which goes up under sort of the alternator. You probably can't see anything, and then shoots up there to the compressor wheel and the turbo. So hiding down in there, which is cool. Looks like the turbo is in the right position, which is goodbye spanner, which is a good thing because it can be a bit tedious having to clock them, so that's great. So the only difference is the size is different, but just get an adapter and put some tube in there, that's easy. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with the intake. It is pretty bloody tight in here, so to get it from here all the way up to there and not run into pipes is going to be tricky. But yeah, exciting stuff. Just need to get all that plumbed in. If I can get all this figured out, that should be happy. Once that's all done, it's just lines and then exhaust, and should be getting close. So hopefully not too much more work. Keep playing around and try and mock up some of the intake, and then yeah, we'll see where we end up. Hello again. So it is a new day. Yesterday turned into quite a battle. Basically all that happened is I went to chuck the intermediate shaft off that I had to take off to get the extractors out. It wouldn't retract back. It was all seized up. It was quite hard getting it off, so not quite sure what happened, but might have got hammered when they put these extractors on, I don't know. Got it in there just as like a bit of a mock-up for the dump pipe, but got that in and then went to sort out the intake, and there is really not a lot of room in here, like very tight power steering hoses. So I have this don't judge the welds too bad, but this little pie cut piece from my old intake on my Skyline, which I was like, oh yeah, that will fit and clear, and then sure enough, it is very tight. So that opened up a can of worms, and then I was trying to figure out like a silicon elbow, and luckily Dr. Drift, the tuner, the man, the myth, the legend, came through, and he actually had a 4-inch to 3-inch reducer 90 degree. So hopefully that one fits on now. I've sorted out another intermediate shaft because I got that one freed up, but I don't like it. It doesn't feel nice, so I don't really want to throw that back on the car. So now I just need to make sure, that the intake silicon hose will work okay. Got to go pick up an intermediate shaft a little bit later. Once I've got that, I'll make the dump pipe. I don't really want to make it with the one just sort of sitting in there how it is. So as long as the intake and the downpipe work good, then we're in business. The coolant lines to the turbo are actually a size up from what I thought, so I think these are going to be -6. Just as a little bit of an insight to these really cool fittings by Custom Alloy Welding. Basically the idea, this pipe, it was leaking and they've covered it in silicon rather than O-ring, so we'll have to clean that up. But all that happens, basically fitting on here, drill out the hole for the water in there, if you can see. Once that's drilled out, that will just clamp on. Really cool design, and it's not, at first I thought it was a little bit funny, but looking at how they're made and the research behind them, it's going to be awesome. So just have to mark that, take it out and drill it. Same on the other side, and then I'll have the line that'll run around, go into this airflow bracket here, and then into the turbo. So that's cool. Hopefully tomorrow I can go and get those lines sorted out, because I'll need all the fittings and the lines. I've got a handful here, but nothing the right size. So hopefully I can get that sorted out tomorrow, and then we should be pretty good. We're getting a lot closer. I realized that this factory line here is meant to run under the intake or something, and like obviously it's not meant to sit there. So we're getting there, slowly getting there. Yeah, for now just going to make sure this intake sort of works, so then I can have a look at making something up to meet up to the crossover there. Yeah, quite a tight fit. Didn't think it would actually be that tight coming in, but no big deal, easy to sort out. So I'm going to get stuck into it, get some pipes on here and try and make a bit of progress. See how we go. So here is where we are at now. Got the factory cooler pipe in here. Got the 90 degree elbow with a reducer on it here. I'm going to make up a heat shield for the exhaust manifold because it gets way too close to all the cooler piping. The reducer fits, but it does rub on here, which I think could be avoided with a elbow off that aluminium pipe, but just going to sort of see what happens for now. Just mocking up the intake. Obviously that's not the right size, but should be able to run off there, come in, and should be able to just go 90 off that, and we should be able to meet up with that actual intake piece I was talking about before. That should give us just the right angle into there, which is good. So I've got this roughly bolted in place. It's not spaced out, but it is in its location, all in the intake and everything. So yeah, I think we've got enough to go off. So I'm going to cut up one of the 90s that I've got sitting around, chuck it in here and just sort of see how we can go about mating it up with that, because I think we actually should be okay. One drama is the turbo itself doesn't have a boost reference fitting on it for the wastegates, so that makes it a little bit tricky. We've got to really get it off the cooler pipe, which might be okay. Might just have to make something, or I could drill and tap actually into the aluminium piece, or maybe even remove the factory boost sensor and get something off there. So I'll play with that when I get to it. For now I want to get this intake buttoned up. Okay, so with that 90 cut, it's looking pretty good, so I'm going to have to cut this joiner so it sits lower and we don't have that bend, because I had to keep it as short as possible away from the bend. But it actually comes up not too bad through here. Once this join is a bit shorter, it's plenty long, so I can take about half that length off it. We should actually be fine to twist it around and get it to meet up with this thing, which obviously needs a bit of cleaning up and everything, but once that's there, it actually should mate up pretty well, so that's cool. That's looking like it should be pretty avoidable. Probably going to end up painting all this stainless black anyway, just so it blends in a bit more, but yeah, getting somewhere, slowly. Okay, a little bit of an update. Trim down that reducer, so got a good amount of this tube into there. I'm happy with that. Still don't like how much that's pressing against there. Easy enough to fix, like I really just need this coming over a little bit, but anyway, it comes onto here okay. That 45 that was here, just shortened it a little bit. Found it an offcut of a bend that I had laying around, which actually mates up pretty much perfectly with that 90 degree there, which is great because this is all going to get TIG welded, so it needs to be nice and close, but that will mate up, no worries. I actually don't think I even need to extend this, like there's plenty there to get a hose clamp on with no issue. Just clean up that joiner a bit, but yeah, that's actually exciting, not as challenging as I thought it was going to be, so luckily that's looking all good. Yeah, I'm just going to tidy this all up a bit and actually probably just get that tacked together. Not really going to bother too much doing up hose clamps and everything now, because all this stuff's going to have to come off and have a good clean out anyway, including the turbo, but more or less that's pretty much the intake piping done. So the only other one, which there is no way you're going to see it through there, is just off the turbo to the factory pipe that does the big zigzag underneath. But even then, I think all I'm going to do for that is run a small 2.5 inch section, which will meet up with the pipe, and then put that into a reducer adapter to get it onto the turbo, because there is that much of a gap, so that will actually work out really well. And then that's pretty much the intercooler piping done. Obviously need to weld it all up, but yeah, luckily, which is good. So now that that's in, I can have a look at little things like the lines. I'm not really sure where I want to run this. I think I'm going to have to come around here, so I'll put a bit of heat sleeving over here, but again there'll be a heat shield made up for the turbo manifold, which is fine. The water feed's going to be a little bit tricky down there, but it's all manageable. What's next now? I've got to drill the sump, which I've been sort of putting off, so might be the time to do that. Make the oil drain, which will be nice and easy. So yeah, get in there. Starting to look a little bit like something that will run, but let's not get too excited yet. Sweet. Hello, another day. Got more parts to carry on, so yeah, got everything to make up our water feed, water return. We've got there the manual boost here as well, so that's good. So now what we've done, basically pulled the turbo manifold off. I know the piping's all pretty much good now. It will have to go back onto the oil drain and the dump, but that's okay. So now what I'm going to do is I need to pull this steel water line out that runs to the back of the water pump there, and over to these heater hoses there, because that needs to come off one of the water lines. Once that one is off, I need to get this one off here, which goes all under there. I've got no idea where else it runs to. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but yeah, work on getting these things off so I can drill them and get them ready for the AN lines that will be going to them for the water feed and return. Alright, so that's the easy one off. Easy couple bolts there, pull straight out of the back of the water pump, and the two hoses there. So got to work on getting this other side off, which is going to be a bit tricky. So pull all the crossover and the intake pipe off and see if that makes it a bit easier. Okay, so what I've done over here, pulled this radiator hose off to the thermostat, just because give me a bit more room. One bolt there, another one down up in here. Now there's only one more bolt that holds this whole pipe on, right at the back of the manifold, down under there. It's a little bit tricky, but I've got to try and get that one off. If it didn't have all of this sort of shit all over it, all of this glue or whatever someone's tried to do to fix it, I'd probably do it in place. But yeah, I want to give that a really good clean up and then make sure when I drill it that nothing gets stuck inside and gets stuck in the cooling system. So work on trying to get that little bolt out. Scratch that idea. Got the bolt at the back, it wasn't too bad from underneath, but the problem is I can't see how I'm going to get this thing out with the intake manifold still in, and I don't want to take that off. But the autos it's easier because they split off down in the middle somewhere for the transcooler, but yeah, this is zigzags up under there, and then you've got a T-piece coming off on the other side. So I think I'm just going to, I've got it out, I've got it sort of free enough that I can get a wire wheel on, get all this glue and crap off, and then clean up the thermostat housing and then start drilling and clean it all up. Alright, so see if we can get some decent focus here. I've got both of the fittings mounted now. They're bloody awesome, so just makes it a very easy way to get some braided line water feed and water supply for the non-turbos, because factory they've got a little barb coming off here, which is where they get their water feed and the water return. But yeah, so just took the pipe off, marked it, drilled it out to the right size, and then there's just an O-ring that sits in between. So you know, these are really cool, make it much easier. Could have just welded a pipe on or something, but this will be nice and tidy, being able to run braided line around. So yeah, hit up Custom Alloy Welding, Facebook and Instagram. He makes these, they're really cool, I really like them, just make life easy. So flushed out both the pipes. This one had a little bit of coolant in it, so I've made a good mess, but flushed both the pipes out to get any shrapnel out. Just made sure that, you know, gave them a good file on the front and on the inside diameter of the hole, just to make sure there's no little bits of metal hanging on there. Even though, you know, these coolant pipes being 20 years old, they've started to rust and started to deteriorate a bit, so they're breaking off inside there too. But at least, you know, I have peace of mind knowing that there's no little bits of metal that are going to get stuck in there, which is awesome. So that's exciting. Got to make up lines for those, that's easy enough. So I think now I'm going to do what I've been dreading, which is drilling the sump. There's enough room to get in there, it's more just, you know, a bit daunting. So basically it's got oil in it now. This oil needs to get changed anyway with something a bit thicker given the kilometers, so I'm pretty much going to leave that oil in there now. Drill out the hole for the feed, 2 holes either side just for the bolts to put the fitting in, and then drain the oil out. And I've got some other oil here, some old sump oil, which I'm going to run through with the sump plug out just to try and collect any little bits of shrapnel that might be stuck in there. Definitely don't suggest doing it that way. If you're going to do it, you're best to either drop the cross member or, you know, do whatever you can do to get the sump out so you can make sure there's no metal in there. I'm not doing it that way because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered, but I wouldn't recommend it, because those little bits of metal, if they get in the engine and get into a bearing, then the motor's stuffed. So anyway, it's, yeah, my risk at the end of the day. Again, don't recommend you do that, but that's what I'm doing. So let's see how this goes, shall we? It's got the casting in the non-turbo sumps, which is good. It makes it a lot easier. So what we're going to do, I'm going to start drilling quite a small hole just as a bit of a pilot, and then I've measured up the fitting that's going there. It's like a 10mm drill bit for the center hole. I want to make sure that it's the right size, obviously drains correctly. Ignore all of the oil I had at leak, which I fixed, and I'm yet to wash underneath. So what I'm going to do, once I get that small pilot hole drill just to start us off, I'm going to load up the, just being aluminium, going to load up the 10mm drill bit in grease. Hopefully that will catch as much shrapnel as possible, and then yeah, basically send a drill bit through it. Got a big bloody tub under here, so should be fine in terms of, you know, the oil level now, not coming straight out the hole. I would think so, I'd hope so, otherwise it's going to get messy. Let's get into it. Probably not going to film this, there's no real good spot to do it, and I'm nervous enough as it is, so I will let you know how we go. So while I was at this point, just thought I'd show, having that grease on that drill bit does actually catch quite a lot of the swarf. There is still quite a lot in there, so I've gone through probably a couple of millimeters now, so I'm going to clean out that hole, clean off the drill bit, and try and get it once more before I actually penetrate through. Just try and reduce the chance of as much going into the sump as possible. So let's clean this up and keep going. We are through, we've struck gold. While I'm here, I wanted to show a little tip. So it's a bit hard to actually see the hole, so if you grab your phone camera and chuck it on video with the flash on, it allows you to sort of get into there and see. So I can actually see, looking at that, there's a little bit of swarf there. A lot came out on the drill bit, which is good. It's very reassuring. So I'm going to get in there with a rag and a screwdriver and just clean out what I can. Once that's done, just mark out the flange for the 2 bolts and then drill and tap them. Luckily that's easy, and while I'm doing that, I'll probably just drain out the oil that's in there and run some fresh stuff through and flush out what I can do. So exciting stuff. We're getting there. Oh, it's going to be hard to see, but can't see anything. Got the oil drain in, got it drilled, got it tapped, which is good. Up top, water lines are in with the AN fittings there. One there, and then another one underneath the power steering. Can't really see the fitting. Turbo manifold on. Got new manifold studs because the ones that were in there were a bit flogged. Draws new nuts, which is cool. So just chucking the turbo together now. I'm going to have to go grab a couple Allen key bolts because that won't clear the bottom for the drain, but that's all good. But put the water feed fitting here and return there, either or. Oil drain fitting in there, so that's all good. I'm going to mock up the line, and I'll make the line now and then just get the bolts out tomorrow, which is easy. Water can get done, this can go on the car, so I'm pretty much trying to get it so slap the turbo in, don't have to take it out again. Putting this aeroflow adapter on now, so it actually looks like it's ported pretty nice as well, so shouldn't really have issues with any boost control or whatever. So that bolted in, and then yeah, should be right to slap the turbo on, make up the water lines, make up the drain, get those 2 bolts for tomorrow, loop up a dump pipe, and we should be pretty good. Hey guys, so another day back on the Barra turbo conversion. Since last time, I've got the oil drain made up and the 2 water lines. I didn't film them, there's a billion videos out there about how to do it. I just masked them up, cut them with a grinder, and then put a bit of tape over my shifter to tighten them up, which is not the best way. You know, the spanners you get for them are much better, they don't leave marks and stuff, but not too worried. So now that those are done, which is good, the fittings are in, they're all tight, so now basically I've got to pull the turbo off once more, swap this 45 and the 90 on the other side around for the water, tighten up the drain fitting to the turbo, tighten up the drain fitting into the block. I'm going to chuck it in with the 2 water lines and the oil drain attached to the turbo, just because it's very tight to get in there. So it's going to be tricky, it's going to be very fiddly getting the manifold nuts on, just because of how much or how little room there is. So yeah, get it pulled out and start getting it together. Sweet. Bit of an update. So turbo's bolted up. It was definitely tricky getting it in, just with where the water lines are. To get the nuts in, I actually had to modify one of my spanners a bit, and also drop the wastegate actuator bracket off to actually have a bit of room, which is not the worst thing. Just a couple of bolts. So got the water line running down there, which is sweet. Chuck the drain on, put that into the block, and then make up a small adapter piece just to come from the bigger outlet here on the turbo into the factory piping. So I'll just cut a small piece of I think it's 2 inch tube, and then that way I can get a boost reference off there as well, just well little fitting in there. And yeah, so this is bolted up. The dump pipe, the good part about this adapter is I'm just going to unbolt this whole adapter and then weld it to the V-band there, so I don't need to take the turbo off and worry about warpage too much. Yeah, I'll definitely need a decent amount of heat management back here, like it's all very close to heat, glad there's some dumps in there too, but either way, it's looking good. Yo, so bit of an update, basically got the lines run, they're all nipped up and tight, which is cool. Water, oil, same into that filter, onto the turbo, intake pipe's made up, it's all tigged up. I haven't put clamps on it yet because I just want to leave everything on loose once I start it. So yeah, anyway, that's on, the drain is on, and the other water line is on, which runs up, it's going to be impossible to see, runs up under there. So pretty much more or less now it's just the dump pipe left to do, which I've got here. So I'm going to use like an old pie cut 3-inch that I've got because I just want to keep it away from the heater hoses and the clutch line as much as I can. So just going to weld that onto the V-band. Might just run it straight like that for now. And just get some oil in it, make sure the turbo's got oil, and I want to run it and check it for leaks, but it's going to be pretty loud, so we'll see how we go. Now that the dump pipe's just cooling off, just finished welding that one. I've gone and taken the fuel pump fuse out, so what I'm going to do, bust that oil feed line off, crank the car and just keep cranking it until I see oil come out, just because I want there to be oil in the turbos once it turns over. So I'll get a small syringe and actually inject some oil into there too, just so make sure that it's lubricated as soon as it's spinning. Filled up with water, filled up with oil. Yeah, once the downpipe cools down, I'll probably just bolt it on and let it point at the floor. And then we'll see how we go. Hopefully she starts up and doesn't have any issues, so see what happens. Okay, so we've got a dump pipe on. It's straight onto the floor, so it should be pretty loud, but let's see how we go here. Oh, she's alive! So that's exciting. Cool, so now pretty much just finish up the dump pipe, which is just bolting up to the 2.5-inch system that's in there. Which that should be easy. Once that's done, there's a few just hose clamps on the cooler piping I've just left loose for now, just to make sure there's no leaks in case I have to pull anything off. So I'll check it over for leaks, probably let it run a little bit longer as well. Once that's done, there's a center muffler that's bloody big, so I might actually delete that. I've got some extra tubing here, so got to do that. Got to put the O2 sensor bung in the dump pipe, because it's probably got no idea what's happening at the moment, so it'll be running rich as. So that's cool, just neaten everything up a bit. It's definitely going to need the heat shield through there just to protect the intake pipe and lines and everything, but I've got the stuff there to make that, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, bolt everything up. Hopefully we go get it tuned tomorrow, because I got to drive this to work the next day, so yeah, hopefully that all goes well. Sort of relying on that to happen, but yeah, anyway, we'll get everything finished up and see how we go. So if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and we'll keep on going and see what happens. Hello again. Get everyone up to speed, so we're pretty much good now. I put my sandwich plate on. It was just like a SAS super cheap brand, whatever, leaking straight out of the fittings, which was sort of expected, so I put some sealant on them, let them dry up. Had to extend the wires for my oil pressure sender, which is down there. Boost gauge, I've run it off this vacuum line. Of course now it's really dark, but you can sort of see in there, that vacuum line runs up. It's something to do with the fuel tank. Off there, boost controller, just little manual boost tees, just cable tied off out of the way down there. So that's from the little pipe I made off the turbo. to the actuator. All the pipes are on, all clamped up, all tight. Dump pipe is on with a new O2 sensor, so that was good. Got to do a bit of TIG welding. It's been a while since I've played with it, so yeah. Now we're basically don't really have any leaks other than those ones in the sandwich plate, which is good. So water seemed okay. I just filled up with water just to make sure. So I got to drain that, put coolant in. But the oil seems okay. Still going to make up the heat shield. Got my new pull needle on here. If you have a Falcon, you'll know what these are about. Just the bumper sag they get is awful, and because this thing just got repainted, having a big gap there looks awful. So slap that one in there. So hopefully that neatens it up a bit. I've got plenty left over anyway. But yeah, before I put that bar in, I'm going to get the coolant, the water that's in there out of it, so I can fill it up with coolant. I should be able to use my little 90-degree elbow. Don't really like how that's sitting over here. It's not tight, but there's not much I can do. I've got to still do a couple of little spaces for that thing, but other than that, it's all on. The exhaust runs up to about halfway. So then there's a big center muffler about 3/4 of the way down. So I guess it's a 3/4 muffler, not a center muffler, hey? But anyway, I'm going to delete that. Just because being turbo now, I don't think it'll be too loud. If it was an A, it'd be pretty obnoxious, but it should have a nice note. So yeah, see how we go.